So who wants to start things off? The students, at least, can you each introduce yourselves on camera? Help put this together.
Hi, my name's Lauren Smith. I'm a junior here at the College of Charleston, and I was a part of a few other students that helped to put this together. So.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Jackson Tiller. I'm also a senior. Yeah, and I'm super excited to have you all here. Can't wait to see what happens out of this, what all we can get. Thank you, guys.
Hey, I'm Michael Robbins, also a senior, studying business with a concentration of entrepreneurship.
Hello, my name is Zach Leff. I'm a senior here at the College of Charleston, and I'm a double minor in entrepreneurship and in leadership and sustainability. And it has been my honor in helping organize this event. And I'm extremely excited to hear everything that you guys have experienced and your stories.
The students have watched some of the interviews I did over the summer with some of you. So.
Hello, my name is Troy Johnson. I'm a senior at the college, and I am about to graduate with a business administration and concentrating in entrepreneurship. And thank y'all for coming out this evening, and I'm excited to hear what y'all have to say.
Hey, how's it going, y'all? My name is Mike Colligan. I'm a senior at the College of Charleston. I'm majoring in business administration with a concentration in entrepreneurship. And I appreciate y'all taking the time out of your day to come and be a part of this. I know you didn't have to be here, and it's a big deal. Thank you.
My name is Ben Draith. I'm a senior here at the college, and I'm a business student with a concentration in entrepreneurship. And thank you all for joining, and I'm really looking forward to hear more from you guys.
My name's Ella. I'm a business admin major with a minor in Spanish. And yeah, thank you all for coming.
My name's Alexandra, and I am a senior with a business administration major, and I'm excited to hear y'all's journey to success.
So, so among the three projects, this is one of the projects. Another project the class was working on, it was helping to put together a comprehensive database of minority-owned businesses. So that was for Ms. Ruth. That we're getting close to being done with that. So that because if you know, there are lots of different lists, and we're trying to put together like one comprehensive list, pass it on to the city, so they can do more good. The third group is working on finding a way to make this permanent, because as some know, I am officially retiring from the college this summer. And so I won't be around in Charleston, at least, to run this. And to me, this is what I consider probably out of the 16 years of college, probably the thing I'm most proud of. And so I really want to see it continue. We last year's forum, one thing that kept coming up over and over again is a need for a hub, and that the college could be that place. So that's what I'm trying to get accomplished. It's, of course, a struggle, as you all know, starting anything new and then starting it in a bureaucracy. is even more challenging. So that group, I think, probably had the hardest job of them all. Just learning about how difficult it is just to get something going on campus, particularly when you're not talking about a student group, but an actual center or initiative or program or something like that. So Zach, you want to go over like what our schedule is for today?
Yeah, of course. So from 4 to 4:30, we were gonna kind of just do some general networking, and
Okay.
I believe we were gonna feature the CFC alumni, the Cocktail Bandits, but I'm not seeing them in
Not
the
here yet.
Zoom yet, unless I'm
Okay.
mistaken. So I guess we could kind of, wait for them to join us and skip to, the introductions of each of our speakers, kind of, introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about themselves, who they are.
Okay, well, let's do that. Ruth, since you are on camera and mic open, you want to start, and everybody else can just kind of jump in afterwards.
Okay, well, good afternoon. And again, thank you all for having us here on this afternoon. Congratulations to all of our seniors. Just a few more days and you will not be seniors anymore at the college. You will be alumni and then be probably coming back to work on your master's. But again, congratulations for everything you've accomplished thus far. My name is Ruth Jordan. I'm with the City of Charleston's Office of Women and Minority-Owned Businesses. I am the enterprise manager here at the city, where our goal is 3 things: certification of women minority-owned businesses, business development, and then helping businesses connect to thrive and grow their businesses. And so I am a native of Charleston, a graduate of Charleston Southern University, started my MBA program at the college, but didn't finish, but at the College of Charleston. And I'm just excited to be here to share with you all what I do and where we're moving forward in this series of entrepreneurial programs.
Hello, I'll go ahead and go next. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Crystal Rouse. I am also a native of Charleston, South Carolina. Although I did have a short hiatus away after graduating high school, I said I was never coming back, but God saw other plans for me, so I came back in 2016. I currently serve as the Director of Collective Action Networks for Tri-County Cradle to Career. And on behalf of TCCC, I thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of your classroom space and panel today. As far as Tri-County Cradle to Career, I serve as the Director of Collective Action Networks. And what that entails is a lot of connectivity, working with different entities, working with different schools, communities, parents, students, so on and so forth, just to ensure success, especially for those who need the most support and help, which are those who are, living below the poverty line, and Black and Brown children. I received my undergraduate degree from Brevard College, had a soccer scholarship, so it was kind of awesome being up in the mountains. As far as my first master's degree, I received that in adult education with the focus on community and higher education. At the time, I was working at Bennett College for Women, which is located in Greensboro, North Carolina. After that, once I moved home, I went to the University of South Carolina and obtained my master's of education in early care and education. And right now, after a 7-month break from school, I am pursuing my doctoral degree at the University of South Carolina. So it's a lot of work. I am a mother of, I birthed 2 sons and inherited 6 other children. So it's always fun in our household. Like right now, I was just telling your professor before we started the call, this is high peak time for after school pickup and drop off. So of course, virtual backgrounds are always good when you're doing Wi-Fi from your truck. But I would not have missed this for the world. Thank you, Lauren, for contacting me. And I'm looking forward to this discussion.
What are you getting a PhD in?
Teaching and learning.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I guess I'll go next. Hello, my name is Tony Johnson. I got invited from a student, his name is Michael, to join your panel today. I am a small business owner. I own a day spa in West Ashley as Simply Your Spa. I've been here for 12 years now, owned the business for 2, worked for my former employer for 10 years. I did not start out that way. I started out going to school, getting my associates in science, something that I really didn't want to do, but it's something you kind of do because your family's like, go to school, go to college, do it. All the kids are doing it. So I did end up going. I do not use that degree right now at all by any means. When I was going through school and going through the dorms, I would always end up doing like nails and hair for like proms or like any kind of galas and stuff that we did. And it just kind of stuck with me. So once I got out, I just kept with that. I moved to Florida. From there on, I have my license in cosmetology from Florida, came back home to Charleston, and I have a nail tech degree as well as my esthetician degree from Charleston. So I have everything except for my massage therapy license.
Okay, who next? Excuse me. Diana?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to be here. It's an honor for me. My name is Diana Sayant. I'm originally from New York City. I grew up biculturally and bilingual. My parents are from the DR. So grew up in New York City. After I graduated from high school, my parents decided to move back to the DR. And that's where I started my adult life. I did the opposite of what people do. People usually go to school in their countries and then move to the United States. I did the opposite. And I was 18 years old, so that was a culture shock. In terms of my education, I have an MBA from CSU. Also, I'm a business owner. My business is Sayant Language Consulting, which started out as basically language learning, ESOL and Spanish, and then it morphed into translating and interpreting. We are now so big that we offer so many different services. I like to say we have 4 pillars, one being the language services, interpreting and translating. The second is training. We train individuals, bilingual individuals, to become nationally certified interpreters. We also consult. So let's say there are businesses that want to connect to the community, to the Hispanic community or Latinx community, as they say now. We help them, we become like liaisons and help them connect to them in different ways, depending on the need of the organization. And then we also have community outreach, partnered with another company now and a colleague, and we're doing so much outreach now in the community, which is great. It is my passion. And I could go on and talk forever. I've been here for 22 years and I love it here. The weather's great and people are nice. And thank you for being here, for allowing me to be here.
Oh, thank you. All right, who else would like to introduce themselves?
I think we may be missing a few speakers at the moment. I know at least two said they were going to be a few minutes late.
All right. Let's see. I'm just flipping through the list. Well, there are obviously a few people here that are not currently taking this class. So we'll get some more introductions. Destiny, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. My name is Destiny Hester, and I'm a senior from the College of Charleston. I'm currently a business administration major with a concentration in leadership for sustainability. And I came to this forum to get a perspective that I don't normally get at the college. So I'm really interested to hear about how you guys came to be in the positions that you are in right now, and what advice you would have for a Black woman to grow into that space.
Well, glad you can make it. Okay. Let's see. Who else wants it? We got a few other people who can introduce themselves. We're so quiet. Oh, Keone. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Good to see you.
Nice seeing you too.
You want to do, you're going to put right on the spot. You want to do a quick introduction?
Sure. Put me right on the fire. So hi, everyone. My name is Keone Epps. I am from King Street, South Carolina, which is a very, very, very small town in South Carolina. I went to the College of Charleston in 2016, graduated in 2020. And after graduating, I created my own business called The Responsible Homegirl. And it's a digital media company where we specialize in helping young adults become financially responsible and wealth conscious. So out of my financial struggles that I experienced in college, the financial stress, all of the bad money mistakes that I made, I wanted to bring light and bring attention to that so more 20-somethings wouldn't make the same mistakes that I did. So I'm pretty sure we'll get more into that later, but that's just a little bit about me.
All right, great. I realize I have, although most of you know me, not everybody does. So probably fair for me to introduce myself. So I'm David Hanson, professor at college for the time being. I've been at the college for 16 years, and I officially am retiring from the college this August. And so I've moved up to Chicago, which is home. The pandemic kind of made that clear that, needed to be closer to family and friends, because you never know when you get to see them again. So it was important for me to make the move up here. Over the years, I've been teaching entrepreneurship, and my passion has really grown towards lately wanting to help women of color entrepreneurs. For me, entrepreneurship is I've always seen this as, in some cases, it's a last resort. You can't find a job, you have no other choice, you become an entrepreneur by necessity. Others become an entrepreneur by opportunity, see some possible way of starting a business, or they just kind of fall into it, or whatever. But I'm more interested lately in the people that are doing it because like they can't find a job for whatever reason, for assorted workplace discrimination, being woman, a person of color, being transgender, all of these being what do you call it? Like having been convicted, all these things that we unfortunately use to segment people away from the rest of society. I see entrepreneurship as a way to combat that. And so my goal is to actually be able to put my full energies into doing that here in Chicago. I could do it a little bit in Charleston, but the teaching, the grading, the meetings, the research, all that other stuff kind of gets in the way. That's my goal here now is to find a way that I could use the knowledge that I have, plenty of it, and I'm giving it away free all the time. Every time I'm in a lift, I end up talking with a driver, and who half the time are people that are looking to find ways to make money, and I end up talking to them the whole ride about that. But I want to be able to devote more of my time to helping people find a way to build wealth, to have a better living, and whatever else I can do. It's kind of I'm exploring right now, trying to figure out what to do. Good news is I have a paycheck and insurance through August 15th, so I have some time to figure things out. I've been practicing what I preach with my students, which is I'm trying out little things, sending out ideas, getting feedback, iterating, all that kind of stuff, seeing where I can help the most. And so to me, this forum and prior years forum have been very helpful for me in figuring that out. So one thing I need to figure out is, how is the situation here in Chicago compared to Charleston? And is there any way for me to make connections between, because I would love to be able to simultaneously help Charleston and use the connections I've made over the 16 years in Charleston, while also helping Chicago. So if there's ways I can facilitate stuff like that, there's a ton of things going on here and in Charleston, and I will overcommit myself to being part of most of it because I have a hard time saying no to things like that. But it's enough about me. We are, I think, going to move on to the forum portion. Yes. All right. All right. So who's moderating?
Couldn't find an official one, so we kind of thought that you would kind of step in when you needed to, but obviously I'd say
I can do that. I can do that.
Let the forum.
Yeah. So so I set sort of the theme for this year, and last year we had a question, and it was based on and partly based on the themes for Global Entrepreneurship Week. This year it is kind of building on some common themes from last year. And so the primary question here is, how do we improve coordination and information sharing among individuals and organizations working to support women of color entrepreneurs. And I divided that up into like 3 different groups because that was kind of what was coming up. So we have current entrepreneurs as one group. We have those that would be the nascent or prospective entrepreneurs, those who are looking to start or are in the process of starting a business. And then we have those that are the future entrepreneurs, whether they be students all the way down to, elementary school, or adults that don't even realize that entrepreneurship is a possibility. So we'll start with sort of the current entrepreneur group, and kind of think about this question of how do we improve the coordination and information sharing, because there are a lot of different groups doing different things and not everybody talks, right? It's hard to know like what all is going on and what everybody is doing. So I'll open it up to everyone to just kind of offer their thoughts on what's going on now and ideas on what we can do.
I'll start off. I think there's always going to be like a lot of things going on, like a lot of different organizations targeted at one group of people or different groups of people. But I think the way that we foster how everyone knows what's going on is just by being very intentional. We have to be intentional with not just creating a thing and expecting people to come to a thing, because I'm pretty sure all of us have heard before, build it and they'll come. I don't think that that's true. I think we have to be very intentional with making relationships, building relationships, and allowing people to see how we are here to serve them. So if someone says, oh, I want to serve women of color entrepreneurs, do you know any women of color entrepreneurs? Have you actually sat down with them and built a relationship with them outside of the business? So I think it's very important that we be intentional, because after a while, it just becomes a ripple effect. Like, you sit down with this woman and then she talks to her friends, her other business-minded friends about this, and you put this together. And not only are you putting something out there and just expecting people to come, no, you have built intentional relationships and everybody is on the same page as far as what you can get, what they can get, and how we can both move our visions forward.
That's great. Well, go ahead, Ms. Ruth. I think you're about to go.
That is one of my favorite words, Ms. Epps, intentionality. And you have to be intentional, but this is a great topic to have. Here at the City of Charleston, we are in the process of writing a grant for the purpose of mapping resources for entrepreneurship. This is timely. Back in 2018-19, I don't remember exactly, because since the pandemic, everything's a blur. But I attended a conference that was put on by the Kauffman Foundation and also part of the National Leagues of Cities. And one of the things that I got excited about was this process of mapping resources. And one of the examples that they showed us in Kansas City, Missouri, was that it was like putting a business on the light rails or the MARTA. Here in South Carolina, we don't have the trains, we don't have the MARTA, but those that are familiar with the MARTA system, you might get the orange line, the red line, the green line. And so depending on where you are in your business process, that if you're starting as a beginner, you may be on the green line, and every resource that you might need should be indicated on the green line. That we could basically be able to identify it, whether it is electronically, whether it is through brochures, through websites. And so we're in the process of trying to figure that out. So whether you are a business that's wanting to grow your business, maybe you're on the orange line, maybe you're getting ready to retire and want to have an exit strategy, you might be on the red line. And so that is something that we really need to be able to do here in Charleston, is to map our resources. Because just like Ms. Epps said earlier, she said that it's just one thing to talk about it, but you got to be intentional. And so people need to know, and businesses need to know, or aspiring entrepreneurs need to know, where do I start? You know, because we have these multiple swim lanes, whether it is Low Country Local First, or whether it's SCORE, or whether it is whether it's the South Carolina Community Business Development Center, or whether it's the chamber now with the MBA program, which is the Minority Business Accelerator Program. And people say, what is that? What is the MBA program? That's for aspiring businesses who are making at least $500,000 or more and want to take that to a whole nother level. And then we also have all these other grant opportunities and funding opportunities for all these businesses, but people don't know where to get the information. Here at the city, we talked about our program, our MWBE, which is Minority and Women-Owned Business Program, which is dedicated for existing businesses. We don't do a whole lot of startups, but what we do is we make sure that those businesses who want to grow, connect, have their businesses validated through certification, and then connectivity, connecting them with opportunities in the areas of whether it may be construction, or whether it may be education, whether it may be in consulting services. So those are the type of things that we do here at the city. So we need to have clear, identified swim lanes, and then be able to relate that, and so that people know what each organization, the College of Charleston Entrepreneur Program, you know, people need to know what each of these organizations and services that are available. So if we had a centralized mapping system within our ecosystem here in Charleston, I think it would be helpful. And I think the college should be the organization that acquires that and develop that ecosystem that people can go for resource mapping and find out where they are. Someone has to house it. Someone has to be responsible for it.
Yeah, and if there's anything the college has, it's information, and not maybe not a lot of financial resources, but we've got physical resources and tremendous amount of intellectual resources.
Definitely. And just to add to the conversation, I third the intentionality piece, because that is the only way that we'll be able to successfully network, communicate, and work together to ensure that resources are available. I know one of the things that I was thinking about, and just specifically speaking about current entrepreneurs, one of the things that I noticed during the time, once the epidemic truly hit our area hard in 2020, was that a lot of, smaller businesses started springing up, right? And a lot of times that information is often shared via social media. I know I follow a page, especially when I'm looking for a Black-owned business. It's called Melanated Mondays, and all you have to do is drop a comment, and I drop what do you call it? Like a status update. I need to get with it. Okay, thank you, Kiana. And you'll get about 20 plus responses of different Black-owned businesses or organizations or companies that actually provide those services. So I think making sure that those pieces and those particular organizations and businesses are pulled within whatever web or asset mapping that and
You're breaking up.
Yep, Crystal's breaking up.
Oh.
Oh, I think she's in the car.
Yeah.
And whether it's Black Food Fridays, those are, and again, it's about being plugged in and hoping that these businesses clearly understand and are given the opportunities. Crystal, I just continue to talk. Go ahead, Crystal.
Sorry, I'm switching to my phone. What was the last thing you all heard? I sincerely apologize.
Of getting plugged in
Yes, so
through social media.
yes, through social media, definitely. And you all heard me share about the Melanated Mondays page that they have. And I was also going to lift up, there's also through the YWCA of Greater Charleston, they offer a program called We 360. And I did have the opportunity to participate in that. And it's an excellent program that provides coaching opportunities for those who are interested in starting their own organization or business. Very intensive, provide you all of the tools and training. And then within those walls is where networking occurs, right? Because you're learning about others that are part of your cohort that are developing and establishing their own businesses. So I think those are a couple of things that I think could be very insightful and helpful as, we all work together. Because we'll, as far as Tri-County is concerned, we will support College of Charleston, City of Charleston, as best we can to help support the establishment of a tool or an asset map to identify, what entrepreneurship or small businesses are available throughout the area.
And then along those lines, again, we have to identify and be intentional and identifying who those groups are, whether it's Low Country Local First, or whether it's We 360. I could just, off the top of my head, come up with 10 different organizations that are doing this working in this sphere. Explore Charleston is working in this sphere. But one of the things that was intentional, which was amazing during the pandemic, whether it was because people were forced to, but they pivoted. A lot of minority-owned companies figured out a way how to make money, how to start a business, make money, and was successful at it. It was amazing. It was amazing how much money people made. Someone talked about whether it was, I think you said, Dr. Hanson, people started businesses, whether it was because of necessity or because of, being able to do it. But a lot of Black businesses were started because of necessity. When the doors closed and they couldn't go to work, people figured out how to make money by following their passion. And that's why I tell people, identify your passion first and then follow. Don't worry about how much money you're going to make at the beginning, because if you're chasing dollars, you won't be successful. But if you figure out what your passion is and identify that need, that question is, what is it that people need that's not being answered? What is it that I can fix? And that becomes, if that's part of your passion, you will be successful in following to fix the problem and identifying what that problem is and that need that people needed. And so people figured that out. They figured out that, hey, people weren't going out to restaurants. So they all of a sudden started doing deliveries, pickups, private chefs started doing some private dinners within homes. I'm like, really? People are paying $150 for somebody to cook their dinner? But people are making massive amount of money. Some people even started doing mobile auto repairs. And, of course, everybody got into home do-it-yourself projects. And so it was amazing how diversity and adversity caused people to pivot and were very successful. And then being plugged into resources that was being made available, real-time dollars. I mean, it was raining dollars throughout this country. And so if you had been in business, you had an opportunity to have some funds rain down on you, but you had to be plugged in. And I have over 460 plus MWBEs, and Diana is one of my registered MWBEs with the City of Charleston. And so we were plugging all those people in to every opportunity that was made available. And so access to resources is also, like I said, very intentional. And so it's about, how do we now figure out, we got so much opportunities, but a lot of missed opportunities. So making sure that particularly women of color don't miss the opportunities that are available.
Diana, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I concur with everything that everyone has said so far. Again, as Ms. Ruth says, intentionality is it's the most important thing. And we're talking about women, and we're talking about women of color, minority. We need to communicate more what we bring as women, and as women of color. We bring a lot because we come from backgrounds where we've worked hard, where we're creative. Most of my Latina women, we've graduated a few. No, I don't want to say a few, almost 100 graduates with the Low Country Local First Good Enterprises program. We offer it in Spanish, and there are women there that have 3 businesses, but it's because they're coming from countries where everything is so difficult. And so when they come to this country and they see how easy things are, they can have 3 of whatever they were doing. And I have to thank Miss Ruth, because she has made an incredible effort to bring in the Latino community and the Latino women. That's very important. So I would say we have a lot to offer. And thank you. I think it was Crystal that mentioned the We 360 program. I'm as a board member of the YWCA. The Y does a lot. I would say volunteer. I started my company, and for the first 5 years, things weren't really rolling. I had my idea, I had my plan, but things weren't happening. And I read this very simple book that changed the perspective of everything, not only my life, but my business world. And it was before you get, you have to give 10 times. And so that got me thinking, so I have to give. I started volunteering on boards, and that alone brought me, I didn't do it with that intention, but it's amazing because every time that I would talk to people in networking events and I would let them know, oh, what I do, oh my God, that's great. That's a great business. It's so needed. Okay. And I would tell myself, yeah, and why am I not getting any business? Well, because people didn't know me. And I got to tell you, people will use your service or your product, 1, because they like you, and 2, because of course you have something that's worth promoting. So I would say to you, to the group, we need to, us women, sometimes we're very shy about talking about ourselves. We need to talk about ourselves more. And we need to say we're awesome, because we are awesome. We do a lot. And we're behind, and I have to say, behind every great man, there's always an amazing woman. I mean, look at all the great men and so I would say we need to promote ourselves better. And anytime you're going to start a business or you're going to do something new in your life, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be afraid, because it just comes with the territory. This is what I say, do it afraid. It doesn't matter, do it. At least you did it and you tried. And I promise you that if you failed, you learned an amazing lesson. that's going to take you to a better place in your business. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. All these big artists and business people, the Fortune 500, have failed many times before they got to where they are.
Yeah, I tell students over and over again, the only failure is not learning.
Thank you.
And that's kind of the basis of how we teach entrepreneurship, is to try it in small experiments. And the other thing I always say is the only way you know something works is to try it. So
yes,
and so what we try and teach is our ways to try something as cheaply and quickly as possible. But that's kind of getting off the subject a little bit. So one of the things that I kind of pick up, or to kind of direct the conversation a little bit, is I've talked to people, over the years, about, how do we help women become entrepreneurs? And basically when I talk to white men, they're like, oh, well, why don't they just come to these events that we run? So what is it that you would say makes it less likely, or maybe less helpful, or whatever it might be, that women of color don't show up much for these networking events that are dominated by white men? Or what advice would you have, or any thoughts on that?
The reason why sometimes people don't show up in the room, because they don't find anyone in the room that looks like them. And so you got to have some folks in the room that looks like them. And so you have to be intentional to make sure that when you're doing selections of boards, with selections of management, you got to put some people that looks like other folks. A man don't want to be the only person in the room with all women. I was on a committee here in the city here last week, and we were doing a very important, we had a very important discussion and making some decisions. And I looked around and I said, where are the men folks? Yeah, we just can't be one way, just having all the women. So I said, where are the men folks? And so we got to be intentional and making sure that if we want some folks in the room, then we got to be intentional to place some folks in the room, so that when we invite people for discussions, or we invite people to networking opportunities, that they find people that look like them. And sometimes, and then giving them an opportunity to have a voice. Because sometimes people never ask, would never ask Ruth, well, what do you think? What do you think from the organization perspective? How do we be more inclusive as a company? How do we be more inclusive as an organization? And I think Ms. Epps, and how do you pronounce your first name, Kiana? She said, ask somebody that knows. Ask a Black person. Ask a Hispanic person. Don't just automatically assume. And sometimes I always tell people, don't tell me what I like to eat. Ask me. Because if you want, because I can make a choice from the menu. Don't just feed me what you think that I should eat. Ask me what I prefer. So I think if we want more people in the room, we want more people in the organization, we want more people in our community of color, then we need to be intentional and going out there. Because if you're fishing for bass, you go where bass is. And so this is what we really need to do, is be intentional. And I think some of the other reasons why people don't come in the room, not just because they're not been asked, and not because they just are uncomfortable. And sometimes people just don't know that the opportunity exists. See, everybody's not like a Diana. Diana just walks in the room and says, here I am. She walks in the room and says, here I am. But it took a long time for us to get there. And I believe Krista walks in the room and says, here I am.
Oh, yes, Miss Jordan. It took me a long time to get there. I am very shy. I'm an introvert. And so not until I understood the importance of that. And those are very good points that you bring up, Miss Ruth, about who are the people that are on top. I say the why. Why is your organization wanting more diversity? Because it's the thing, and if we don't have diversity, we're not going to, or to check the box, or are you really interested? And I have to mention Miss Ruth again. She showed genuine interest on the Latino women with the Hispanic Business Association. When I'm past president of the Hispanic Business Association, and when we reached out to her, she really did it. It wasn't just, oh yeah, you really have to want to do it for the right reasons, not because, okay, this is a thing that all the organizations are doing and we have to do that DEI. No.
I appreciate that. And going back to the word intentionality, which I think is going to be the theme for this evening. One of the things that we often forget is when opportunities are open and available, when it's advertised or communicated out, it's communicated in a way that the sponsoring organization or group, the way that they communicate instead of the way that the recipients are able to receive it. Because, with communication, we have to make sure that we're looking at it as a two-way communication. So if there is an opportunity for women of color or people of color or, whoever it's for, young people, we have to go to where they are. So for me, if I were having a program, I have children in middle and high school. So I'll come during lunchtime and have conversations with them and share the opportunities with them. They're an extracurricular. I'll talk to the parents while we're there. So you have to take advantage of every form of communication and sharing on an opportunity. Does not necessarily have to always be formal. And we have to just remember that, because a lot of times you'll get the most traction after you have already established or developed relationships with these individuals and communities, for them to build that actual level of trust with you. Because if we don't know you and we don't have any form of or sentiment of knowing who you are or feel like some form of connection, then we won't participate. And that's just the reality of it as it pertains to intentionality and communication.
Yeah, I just want to echo a little bit of what everyone said and just start off by saying entrepreneurship is already uncomfortable. So we have this idea in our head and we want to manifest this idea and change it from an idea to real life. So we are already going through a whole lot of emotions. So now to go into a room where we know nobody and we're expected to be, received well, that's just another factor of unknown that come with all of the other unknowns of entrepreneurship. So it's almost taxing in a sense. And I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it goes back to my first point. Are we building relationships outside of the business? Just like business, I know we kind of look at it like in a huge grand scale, but people do business with people. So we shouldn't look at it as organization and organization. No, like I want to understand this person's vision. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you even in business? Because business is hard. I know you're not in it just for the money. So let me understand what it is that you are really passionate about and what problem do you really want to solve, like Ms. Ruth said earlier. So it goes back into being intentional and making and building relationships outside of the business, in my personal opinion.
That is a great point. Keone? Is that right? Oh, wow. Keone. That is a great point, and you hit a very important word: relationships. Remember earlier I mentioned that people are going to do business with you. Of course, you're going to have a product or a service that people want, but because they like you, how do you think they're going to like you? You have to build relationships. How do you build relationships? You got to go. You got to be out there. You got to, but genuine. You have to really like people. And you have to learn how to listen and be invested and interested in people's stories. That is key. That is key. Relationships.
And honestly, I feel we live in a digital age where it's easier to even build relationships. Like I tell my community all the time, I have a podcast and I tell them I am the slide in your DMs queen, because everybody that comes on my podcast, it's not like I know them. No, I slide in their DMs. I be intentional about having a conversation with them and then invite them on the podcast. So we kind of have to take out the guesswork. We can be at the networking events and we can pop up and do this and do that, but on your Instagram page, on your Facebook page, who is inspiring you, who is out there actually putting in the work. So if you see that and you want to be connected to that person, entrepreneurs are not superhuman. Literally reach out, tell them what it is that you're inspired by, and ask them for 15 minutes of their time. And most of the time we like talking about ourselves, so I wanted to take away the hardship that comes with building relationships, because it's not really that hard.
That's exactly how I've gotten my network built and how I've gotten people at the forums in the past. I still haven't met many of you in person. I just found you online and reached out, because, what's the worst that can happen, right? Maybe they insult you, but it's the internet. Get used to it, right? You're gonna get insulted. But one of the thoughts I had, just as an idea, one of the problems to mention was that when you walk into a room, there's nobody like you. What if there was like a simple program to get 2, 3, 4 people together to go together to an event, so that there's guaranteed people like you? That would perhaps make it more comfortable, and maybe more of a, you won't be the only person like you in the room. Just throwing that out as an idea.
Dating myself, back in the day, I always would take somebody in the room with me. So if I heard something that was going on, I'd call up a girlfriend and say, hey, this is going on, let's go. And so then I had somebody in the room with me. And then that way we could share it. And so not only should we be intentional, if the organization is sponsoring something, be intentional to have a diverse group within the room already, inviting those persons that's part of their organization in the room. So when they're getting other folks coming, that they'll see somebody, but then take somebody along with you. Kiani said that entrepreneurship is scary. It's hard. Sometimes meeting a new person. Diana says that, that she's shy. I'm shy too, but people don't believe it. My husband says, give her a mic and she'll just start talking. But so take some people in the room with you. I think that's important too. Find somebody else and take somebody with you within the room. And then sometimes, and it makes a difference just walk in the room with a friend. And there's a lot of times, I hear about opportunities, like they said, everything's now on social media. Show up. Show up. When I sold real estate back in the day, I sold a $1.9 million piece of property because I just showed up in the room. Showed up in the room, heard about an opportunity that was coming that was not even on the market. It was a church who were moving out of one area because of the change in the community. and they said their membership was low. This bill, and I just heard about it just being in a room. And I think I was the only African American female. I think it was like one of those, social club breakfast kind of thing. They thought I was a white Republican. I mean, a Black Republican in the room. And I just showed up that day, and because somebody invited me. And they were just talking about this church. And I went back and said, there's a church that's coming up, y'all. And they bought it. $1.9 million. Because I showed up in the room. Nobody was even talking to me. Someone was just having a conversation, and I picked up on it. And I followed up.
The earliest conceptions and definitions of entrepreneurship was about people having unique information, right?
Yes.
So you only get that when you go into a room.
That's right.
In particular, a room where there are people that are not like you, right? Because one of the things I tell students is that your knowledge is based on experience, and no two people have the same experience, which means no two people have the same knowledge, same information. And when that comes to creativity, is that ideas are combinations of knowledge. So the novelty of your ideas comes from how different your knowledge is, which comes from your experience. So that's
so I went to this breakfast that morning.
Right.
Because someone invited me to the breakfast. Right. And I went to the breakfast.
That's how you get that information that others don't. And you can connect it because the people in that room don't have the knowledge that you have. Right.
That's
so
right.
This is why it's really, really important to get out to some of these networking events, because you never know who you're going to run into, what you're going to hear, and what you can connect. And one thing that I'll always tell everybody is something may seem like it's really obvious to you. It's obvious to you because of the knowledge that you have, the experience that you have. It's not necessarily obvious to everybody else. It might be once you explain it, but it's not something that's going to come up, in their minds. Because what I hear a lot of times is people saying, "Oh, well, I had this idea, but I'm sure everybody else is doing that too." You don't know, or maybe you're doing it a different way. There was something else I was going to say, but I know somebody else wanted to chime in. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So one of a book that the students are reading in class is called Collective Courage by Dr. Jessica Gordon-Nembhart, who might be dropping in later today. The book, I have it right here. I have it somewhere. So the history of African-American cooperative economic thought. So this goes into, as you can imagine, the history of what eventually becomes cooperatives. The very simplest beginning of a cooperative is basically a study group. So one of the things that I was thinking about, and I don't remember exactly what it was, Ms. Smith, you said, but it was something when you're talking about you bring a friend. I think you talked about it afterwards. That's a really good practice. So you get a group right together, you go to an event, and then afterwards you talk about it, discuss it. What were your takeaways? How does this relate to your business? Because talking about it is going to help you learn more. It's going to help you, make use of that information, as opposed to it just being forgotten, by the next day, right? Or even if you do it the next day. So that might be something, a study circle, that it's a combination of readings, going to events and reflecting on it and that sort of thing, is potentially, a way to go about following up with the suggestion I had earlier about just getting together and going to events. So let me see. There was another question I was going to pose. I don't think of it. I need to write these things down, but it's so engaging to just kind of listening to everybody. But I'm blanking.
I'm wondering if there's anything that we've said so far that any of the students may have questions about, or any thoughts or feedback.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Guys are a quiet crowd.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I know one thing that I was thinking about even before we jumped on the forum this evening was the fact that in undergrad, well, when I was in undergraduate school or elementary, middle school, we didn't even really talk about entrepreneurship or even, think about it, right? I think honestly, my first exposure to entrepreneurship was when I was working at a college, and it actually became a program at Bennett College during my time there. I know one of the things that that I am very passionate about is working with, just young people, period. And I'm wondering what, I know some schools are doing some entrepreneurial programs, which I think is going to be very impactful moving forward, especially with their own development, especially with how everything is going with the economy. Have any of you had a chance to work with any young people, or what are some of your entrepreneurial ideas as you're going through your, collegiate years? And there's no wrong answer.
I haven't worked with any young people yet. Most of my project this semester was just focusing on ideas and people who we can bring to speak. And unfortunately, some of them didn't make it here today. But like a problem I feel like I would ask y'all is, or an idea maybe is, like, what do y'all think would make women of color more open-minded about, I know you said having more women in the and people that look like you in the areas of these, but like, what would you think would make them come in the door and want to be an entrepreneur and want to take in and feel more comfortable about joining classes like these and making it feel less masculine, as the word entrepreneurship I've heard is?
I'll jump in and say this. I have to go back to what I was saying, build relationships with them. Because when you build relationships, you're going to find out more about them, and you're going to find out more about what they like and what they don't like. The bottom line is building relationships. And I have to tell you, we live in the best time, because in terms of communication and ways to connect, it's the best time ever. And so you have a lot of tools to do that. And you have to be consistent. I think I told this story the last time I got together with this group, and it was my best client ever has been the Department of the Treasury, the US Department of the Treasury. Why? I went to a networking event, had nothing to do with it. I went to a networking event and was introduced to this person who worked at the court. And this person, and I told them I did translations, interpretations, I did transcriptions. And she said, oh, well, let me have your name, let me have your card. Give out your cards. You give out your card sometimes and you say, I don't even know why I give out cards, because people never call me anyway. Let me tell you this, and I compare it to a plant, and I'll tell you why. So 2 years later, I get this call from a special agent. They were performing this undercover investigation. They needed someone to do transcriptions. And I said, I was kind of, what is this? Who is this? This is, this is not. Yes, do you do transcriptions? Yes. And that's another thing. If they ask if you do something, say yes. Even though you don't do it, you'll find somebody else to do it. Yeah, share the wealth. And so, so I said, yes, of course. Well, okay, so we have some tapes that we would like to send you, FedEx. What is your address? I gave them my address. Very kind of, where's this coming from? The next day, I received a FedEx envelope. And I was afraid to open it, of course. It was the way the FedEx envelope was. It wasn't even a professional FedEx envelope. It was like somebody took wrote the address down with a typewriter, and then cut the paper and put it on the FedEx envelope. Very odd. And so so I said, "Oi, this is the thing that this person said." So I open up, and there's like 3 or 4 CDs. And I said, At the time, it was a long time ago, I still had a computer that had a CD in it. And so I was afraid to put in the CD. I said, what if this messes up my computer? Anyway, long story short, what I ended up doing was calling that person that I hadn't spoken to, that I met that time once, and asking her, listen, I'm getting this thing. Is this legit? Yes, it's legit. The reason you got it that way is because you probably got it from an undercover agent, and he's on the field working, and that's the way they send their stuff. Let me tell you, that's been the biggest contract I've gotten for the life of my company. So my point is that you never know where things are going to come from. It's like a plant. I'm going back to the plant. You have a plant, and you put in the seed, and nothing is happening, and you don't see anything sprouting, but something's happening under there. It's happening, and then one day it's just going to sprout. You have to have patience. Things take time. And I have to say that story all the time because it was amazing. It was amazing. You just never know. And I still have business. I'm still doing business with them. I just got some more business last week. Go figure. Go figure. Be nice, talk to people, like people. You have to be genuine too, because people are going to know that if you're not doing it genuinely. But yeah, it's all about relationship, guys.
So a question is, how do we take this knowledge that y'all are sharing and get it out to more people? How do we get people to know that they need to do this?
By doing what you're doing right now. Forums.
Yeah.
Panels. And just have people who can genuinely speak about things. That's what I would say.
And I would add doing it consistently. So I'm not sure who your ideal client is. I don't like to say the word target audience because I think that's very misleading. Like people say target audience and they try to serve everybody. And I believe if you're serving everybody, you're serving nobody. So who is this ideal person that you are wanting to serve? And then once you figure out who that ideal person are, you need to speak to their need. We talked about communication earlier and show up for them consistently. I can tell you all firsthand, like I just started my business 2 years ago And I still, like Diana said, you have to water the seed, you have to plant seeds, you have to sow consistently, because you're not going to see it overnight. And your messaging has to be consistent. So you can't say one thing one day and then another thing another way. Like it's okay to grow and evolve and change your messaging over time. But the person that you're trying to serve, you need to be consistent with how you show up and what you say when you do show up. And but take some time to experiment to see what it is that they need and want. Because you may think a person needs a thing or wants a thing, and that's not what they need or want. So that's another layer of entrepreneurship, the experimenting phase, throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks and not being afraid to continuously put yourself out there.
And Troy, thank you for the question about how do you get more women of color in programs such as the entrepreneurship program. And you said something that you said about the word entrepreneurship seems to be masculine. So what did you mean by the word entrepreneurship seems to be masculine?
Yeah, I've heard from a couple professors and some women across the campus that some people think that the word entrepreneurship is a masculine word, and some people, like I think Professor Hanson was talking about the other day, or one of his videos that he posted, that some people like to be called a business owner or entrepreneur, like and just feel like the word entrepreneur. You could probably build off this, Professor Hanson, but I've just heard that some people feel like it scares off some women or other people that would be interested in calling themselves an entrepreneur.
If you type entrepreneur in Google, right, and go to the images, it's going to be all white men, right? Right, because that's what people think of, right? So this is where the representation, you need to be able to see more people of color and women as entrepreneurs. One of the things I heard from some students and some people in the past was that that, like, say their mom was an entrepreneur but never considered herself an entrepreneur, just called herself a business owner. That the word entrepreneur was something reserved for, like, Bill Gates, not for someone owning a small business, right? Which is why I was trying to change the name of this class from minority entrepreneurship to women minority-owned businesses. Unfortunately, that did not pass, and as part of, I think for me, it was kind of like the final straw for deciding to retire. But
so I think that's a very interesting point about terminology, rather entrepreneurship, business owners, side hustle, gigs. And I do a class called Minding Your Business. And part of that minding your business is, how do you see your business? And how does others see your business? And how do you, what do you call your business? Do you call it a gig or side hustle or something to do? And so whether it's entrepreneurship. And so I think terminology does matter. And maybe we need to explore that a little further. How do we do that? I don't know, but that could be a conversation that we could take a poll of businesses to see, and particularly businesses of color. How do they see their business? Do they see themselves as entrepreneurs? And if it's entrepreneur, what does that mean to them? Or when other people hear it, what that means. So it's sometimes, I guess it could be scary because sometimes people think it's very vast. But, like you said, you just see white males. But again, it is about business ownership and self reliance and hopefully sustainability in terms of moving forward, in terms of economic growth for yourself. So that's a good question. And I think, what would you call it, David, besides just business owner, women-owned business?
that was the simplest term, business owner. I think everybody can relate to that. It's straightforward. There's no confusion about that term, right?
Mhm.
Right. When it comes to entrepreneurship, having been in this academic field for 20 years, and I've put students through the assignments of just looking up definitions of entrepreneurship. There's no consistency.
Like, what is it?
Right. Right. And even in research, people are researching it with different definitions and then trying to compile all the information. And so it doesn't translate, right? So some people will say entrepreneurship is small business. Some people will say entrepreneurship is only the high growth firms that are going to try to become an Amazon. Some say entrepreneurship is everything, so it's a word that to many extents is just lost meaning because it's so overly used. So
right,
I'm one that's more towards just say what you're talking about. And so if you're talking about a startup, you use the word startup. If you're talking about owning a business, business ownership, right?
That's right.
If it's growing a business, right? You just use those words rather than
self-employed.
Right. And even that's still a little vague, but it's better, right? Than entrepreneurship, and it's perhaps less scary. I mean, one of the things I remember somebody telling me, it's like, yeah, we never thought of our dad as an entrepreneur. He just owned this store that was our income. That's how we paid the bills and got food, right? Never thought of it that way. So yeah, I think it might be worth going out and just getting. I love the question of what does it mean to be an entrepreneur. I've done that in plenty of interviews with some of you here and elsewhere, because everybody's going to have a different definition. So yeah, let's kind of just hear from more people on what they think about the word entrepreneurship. Think about what it is they do, how you define yourself, what you most relate to, that sort of thing.
I think for me, it also depends on your own prior experiences, right? Or what areas you're from. So I know, like I mentioned before, after high school, I've been was gone from Charleston for about 16 years. So I'm, as far as the term entrepreneurship, cool, I'm good with it. It's fine. And I started hearing, instead of entrepreneurship, more so of small business owners or startups once I moved back to Charleston. So I think it's, and with Charleston, we know Charleston has grown drastically over the past few years. Every year it seems like another million people move here. But anyway, I think I think being that our city is, becoming more, or now it's not just the Benyas who are here, it's the Kamyas who are here as well. So I think it's just, whatever folks are most comfortable with. And I think also with that, I know we were talking about, how to provide opportunities. I think within those opportunities that are provided for people of color or those who may be considered underprivileged. And I really don't like the term minority, because that's kind of null and void as we look at how the population is shifting and changing in the US, right? So as those things are shifting, we have to, as we're educating folks or sharing information about being a business owner or becoming an entrepreneur, whatever they would like their title to be during that time, that would be part of like the actual workshop or training, to say, hey, here's how this is defined, here's how this is defined, how would you like to be defined? Because it's your brand, it's your company, it's your organization. So I think that's something that should definitely be incorporated into that teachable space.
This is honestly my first time hearing that people associate entrepreneurship with being masculine. Where I come from, people wear entrepreneurship as if it's a badge of honor. And I think it is, but I had never, ever, ever heard that entrepreneurship is masculine. And I think even now we are shifting into an age where more people are wanting to be entrepreneurs. More people are taking less and less and less from big corporate organizations and companies in pursuits of what they want to do and their own visions. So I would just say it goes back a little to what Crystal said. What do you want to define yourself as? So I don't necessarily think it's an issue with being called an entrepreneur. I love saying I'm an entrepreneur. I take pride in that. And I know a lot of other business owners that take pride in it as well. So I guess it really just depends.
Well, I think it's still, we need to see more women of color entrepreneurs to broaden that perception, right? Because so to you, it's perfectly fine. What I'm concerned with is that by putting stuff under the umbrella of entrepreneurship, it kind of also keeps people out that don't associate, right? Because this is what several students had told me years ago. Just one of the reasons why this forum even came into existence was that there were two African-American women students who took my class, and I asked them why don't we get more, in our classes, and one of their response was that, for them and people they know, they'd never thought of entrepreneurship as a possible path for them.
Yeah,
it wasn't something that they thought about. But when you talked about business ownership, that was something a little bit more realistic.
I do feel that we're going through a cultural shift though.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody is on Instagram or you listen to podcasts, being an entrepreneur, seeing people who look like you, Black people, Hispanic people, women, men, people from disadvantaged backgrounds, you see it, and stories are being shared and highlighted, versus I would say even 5 years ago, it was almost like these people were living up under a rock. So as a culture, we're just shifting a lot. I have not seen as nearly much entrepreneurs as I did like right now in high school. But now graduating from college and seeing what is being done, it gives me inspiration to go out there, pursue my dreams with full force. Like, we see it. Is that only my experience?
Yeah.
And so, and I think Kiana is on to something, because she's so correct. Because now you got kids who are going to college that's not taking the path that I took when I graduated. It was go get a job and to work 20 years, 25 years, get a retirement. Now we have young people that says, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur.
Right.
I'm gonna work for myself. I'm going to create my own business, and I'm gonna be successful. So I think there is a cultural shift, David, because now we have the whole nother generation that's coming forward where everybody's talking about entrepreneurship. I'm like, you just got a PhD. Aren't you, you got a PhD for MUSC. Aren't you going to go and work for MUSC? There's no. I'm opening up my own practice. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, oh. So I think it is a culture shift. And so I think the more that people see entrepreneurs of color, then they get it. They get this word, because how we see ourselves, what we call ourselves, how we see our business and what we call our business, that this is what I do. It's not a side hustle. It's not a gig. It is my profession. And Kiani said that she's proud of her being an entrepreneur. It's a badge of honor. And so part of it has to be where people have to see that. They have to realize that is it is a profession, and they begin to see others. And I will tell you, I went to an event called the Ubora Awards here in January. It was one of the coldest nights in January I ever been out here in Charleston. It was over at Trident Tech. And it's a young woman by the name of Karen what's Karen's last name? I can't remember Karen's last name. Thor. She runs a platform for minority-owned business called Cares Connect, and she connects women of small minority-owned businesses on a digital platform. I think she has over 200 businesses with Cares Connect, and she had this award dinner over at Trident Tech here in January, and it was called the Deborah Awards, Excellence in Entrepreneurship. She had over 500 people, entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and the tickets, would y'all believe, was $175. I did not believe that many young people, and I'm telling you, 45 and below. The average age of that room was between 35 and 45-year-olds who were entrepreneurs. And over 500 showed up, and those tickets were $175. And they were all aspiring entrepreneurs. And I was blown away. Because if someone was to tell me that you would have over 500 entrepreneurs in that room under the age of 40, of color, I didn't believe it, but they were there. So Karen is on to something.
Definitely. I think,
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
Diana, yeah.
Yeah. So two things I was going to mention. I believe that Kiana is on to something in terms of race also, because there's so much that has happened in the last 10 years in terms of race, and the newer generation that is coming up by 2050, the US is going to be a brown. It's going to be, the majority is going to be brown, and the white population will eventually be a minority. And so the people who are coming up, they are not following our path in terms of race. They're more accepting because they just don't, they know the truth, they feel the truth, and they're very open about saying it, not only race, but also preference, sexual preference, the LGBTQ community, all of this. So that's one thing. Another thing that I wanted to say that, I'm sorry, David asked, what do we do? Right now, we're doing something that is helping promote brown entrepreneur women. Ruth just mentioned Karen. We need to find out who that person is, Karen, who filled a room with 500 women entrepreneurs of color. Then this is the moment where Ruth, hey Ruth, we need to give that name to David, so that we can start rolling. It's all about networking. We're already doing it. You just, like someone said, you have to be consistent. You can't just do it 1 year and then once a year. It has to be consistent. When then it finally becomes second nature.
Well, okay, Crystal.
Sorry, and I'll just make it really, really brief. I think one of the other things that I often think about when I think about Black and Brown entrepreneurs or women entrepreneurs or small business owners is the actual startup piece, right? A lot of times, as a woman of color, we've been told, okay, well, it's okay to work in your passion, but you have to make sure you maintain a full-time job to actually fuel and help pay for your passion as you're starting out your business. And I think making sure that we're connecting folks to resources or companies or organizations that actually support whether it's social entrepreneurship, small business grants. You know, of course, there's inequities as it pertains to the lending stream, as it pertains to banks, but there are organizations like a company called Echoing Green that offers a social entrepreneurship startup grant for folks who are looking to go into social entrepreneurship to focus on different aspects. And, it's 18-month fellowship that provides full support, full like I want to say over the 18 months, it's like $80,000 to go towards you getting started and establishing. You'll have coaching, you have the full whammy. But of course, with that particular opportunity, there's over 1,000 folks who apply for it, right? But those opportunities are out there. So just for folks who are interested in fueling and supporting their passion and getting it started, as we do the asset mapping, ensuring that we're including that aspect into it as well.
What I'd like to get back to is kind of talking about the collaboration aspect and how we help. And we have a guest that just joined us, Dr. Gordon-Nembhart, whose book I just pitched just a few minutes ago before she came here. If you can introduce yourself really quickly.
Sure, thanks. And sorry I couldn't be on earlier. How's everybody? It sounds like you're having a fabulous discussion. So I'm Jessica Gordon-Nembhart. I'm a professor at John Jay College in Africana Studies and Economics. I'm a PhD in economics. I wrote the book, as you just heard, Collective Courage, about the history of African-American cooperatives. And what else? I'm an active co-op educator, I guess, is the other thing I could say.
Yeah, so students in the class have read much of the book. And so this has come up a lot. I've ever since I discovered it, I've gotten really interested in co-ops. And in fact, we've gotten involved in a collection of co-ops here in Chicago and helping them get strategized and focused. But I more and more see the value in it in terms of entrepreneurship. And because I've mentioned earlier that the definitions of entrepreneurship are just all over the place, and mine changes by the hour. So I more apply it as a mindset, a way of thinking, not necessarily. So you don't have to start a business to be an entrepreneur, to me. But I wanted to bring you in on conversation about how, because the goal here is let me go back to the main question that we have is, let's go back. How do we improve coordination, information sharing among individuals and organizations working to support women or fellow entrepreneurs? And to me, that seems like it's something that I mentioned study circles and stuff like that, leading up into co-ops. I didn't go into a lot of detail about it. But I see that as, because one of the problems that we're having here is that there's a lot of different people and organizations with knowledge and doing things and all that, but it's not coming together, right? That's part of what this is trying to be, but right now it's only a once-a-year event, which doesn't get, it accomplishes some, and I post it on YouTube and we get some people watching it and all that, and I talk with people outside it, but I'm actually leaving the college this year, and I'm looking for other ways to create more of a lasting structure. And so one of those possibilities would be some form of a cooperative of some sort. And I know there is one already for entrepreneurship. I think it's called Ultima, operates in Oakland and Boston. And it's a co-op to support entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are the owner members. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't-
know much about it. I get their emails, but I haven't learned.
Yeah, I don't know about them either, but it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some of the things I can say from what you've said and what I've heard are a couple things. One of the things that drew me to co-ops was once I realized that they were a way to kind of formalize the entrepreneurship, the solidarity, the collective ways that people already operate as human beings, especially women. When you look in communities, right, women, and for me, entrepreneurship is really about agency, right? Agency and innovation, right? Using your agency to innovate in order to do something better and different. And I think of it in a people-centered, not a for-profit centered notion. So to me, right, the entrepreneurship, especially that women, especially women of color, marginalized women, use to better their families and their communities, right? And often they do that, one, through mutual aid. And I found out that a lot of the women involved in starting and running co-ops actually started out in mutual aid. It was kind of, mutual aid was a natural way, especially for Black women, again, to help their families and their communities to do and get things that they couldn't get by themselves or individually, right? To pool their resources. I have a friend in Canada, Carolyn Hossein, who talks about the banker ladies, right? Not only were the women involved in isusus and other kinds of rotating savings and credit, but they were actually often the women were the ones who held the money, even if men were in the group. And so this notion that women kind of were keeping everything together between the money, the ideas, making sure that the kinds of things they did helped the whole community, not just their own families. And that's also kind of what resonated to me in co-ops, that you could do all those things a little bit more formally in a co-op. And so that's one of the reasons I started studying co-ops, is to understand better. Two of the sort of surprising, which probably shouldn't have been surprising for me, things when I started to look into Black co-op ownership was how important women were, and how many women were involved in co-op development, sometimes even women run co-ops, not just involved in co-ed co-ops. And two, the importance of education. And again, the role for Black women in the education part. So that a lot of these study groups, we actually have testimonies even from some of the Black men about the study groups, and that they wouldn't have happened, they wouldn't have continued if it wasn't for the women, right? So the women keeping things going, pulling things together and then keeping it going. So the sustainability as well as the initiation is often by women. And when you look at that education piece, part of what's so important about it is the collaboration, right? Learning together. So it's not just that we need to get trained and we find ways to teach ourselves or to teach each other, but also that when we learn together, we find better ways to do this social entrepreneurship, right? Better ways to think together, to act together, to innovate together. And so that's, for me, why I think I found out that the education piece was so important. Because it's not, it's just so much stronger, right? If you're learning with other people, putting two heads together, right? Or five heads together, figuring out how to make decisions together, how to persist, how to innovate, right? It's not just, it really goes better when you do it as a social entrepreneurship project. So doing it together with other people and doing it for a mission to really help your community. And that's what I found when I started studying co-ops, especially among Black women, but not just Black women. I've started doing a little bit with Latinx. Latinas are also, Latina-owned worker co-ops are like one of the fastest growing worker co-ops in the United States. So again, it's this notion of women combining that agency, innovation, collective action, and worrying about their communities and trying to make things better for their communities. I don't know if you want me to give any examples, or I want to keep the dialogue going. I don't really want to dominate. But if people want a couple of examples, I can do that also.
Well, if anybody has a question they want to bring up, you can just use the, the hand raise function. So Dea, it looks like you wanting to ask a question, or you just came on screen. Okay. Yeah, so you go ahead and some examples.
Okay, so one of my favorite examples is Freedom Quilting Bee in Alabama in the 60s, but the Quilting Bee actually, I think it may still be in existence today, but anyway, it lasted like 30 or 40 years. But what I want to talk about is their beginnings, because to me it was so fascinating. So these were sharecropping women who actually, I think the idea might have come from a priest, a male, who was suggesting that they could sell their quilts. But after he kind of sold a few of their quilts up north and gave them the idea, they ran with the idea and realized that in addition to sharecropping, which is debt peonage, so their families were very, very poor and couldn't get out of debt. The quilting that they did often in the winter, if they did more of it, did it together and sold it, they could actually make some money. So they formed a cooperative. They started quilting in their homes, but quilting together. The things that were fascinating to me about that co-op is their ability to pool their expertise and their earnings to do more and more things in their community and to get themselves out of debt peonage and out of sharecropping in some cases. And so what happened was, first they realized that something that they did at home just for their family could bring in income, right? They also figured out that by doing this as a business together collectively in a co-op was a more stable, more democratic way to do it. They were able to bring in enough income that they bought land. And again, sharecropping people who were just renting and in debt all the time, but their co-op was able to buy land. So they actually built a factory. They then stopped producing the quilts at home and started producing the quilts in a factory. But that changed a lot, right? Now, if they're not at home all the time, they need things like childcare, other stuff like that. So they actually, the co-op itself started instituting a childcare program, an after school program, a summer reading program, hired people to do all that. The extra land they had, they started leasing out to other sharecroppers or former sharecroppers. This was the late 60s, early 70s. And people were getting thrown off the land they were sharecropping because they registered to vote, or even because they went to a civil rights meeting. And so this small little co-op, just little Black women quilters, right, had enough land that they were able to lease to some other people who had lost their land. They were able to sell some of their lots to other people who wanted to wanted to farm on their own land. They started these other side businesses. They started taking care of the childcare aspects in their communities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you see how, one idea, one issue gets, turns out to create a whole ecosystem of change and support and development for a group of people, in this case, a group of women and their families and their communities. So that's one of the kinds of examples. And they lasted a long time. Their biggest problem with sustainability was once the original founders got old and retired, often their daughters took over, but they didn't do enough internal education. So when their daughters took over, they didn't have that same understanding of why a co-op, how to do the co-op, the same urgency. And so little by little, they weren't able to keep replicating themselves or attract enough people. So I think that's where the education comes in, right? For sustainability, you've got to keep bringing in new people, educate them, have them learn together with the original people. You need to somehow keep that side of things dynamic for the sustainability. So I would say that's sort of one of the lessons learned from that. But they lasted 30 or 40 years, so I'm not sure even worrying about sustainability is that huge, right? The whole world changed by the time their co-op kind of went under. So in some ways, and I like to talk about co-ops as transitioning and not so much as failing, because there's so many different things that happen and so much different learning and different ecosystems of things that get developed once you have a co-op, that even if the co-op itself doesn't exist after a certain period of time, there's so many spillovers and so much legacy that it's hard to think about them as failing. And especially one that lasted 30 or 40 years, to call it a failure just because it's not forever, I think is also a mistake. We have to look at what its purpose was and what it accomplished.
And it was, you said,
yes,
it was 3 women or something?
The original founders,
Yeah.
I didn't actually say, I think it was 3 women, but they had about, I think at their height, they had at least 10 or 15 quilters. And then they, as I said, they hired people to do like the childcare and stuff. So in 1992, I think it was, they were considered the largest employer in their town, but I don't have the numbers of how many,
I mean, it started,
don't have numbers of how many owners or even
small.
very small, tiny, right? 2 or 3 people coming together and saying, oh, we could sell our quilts. We could form a co-op to do that. And then we could start quilting together to make more quilts, that kind of thing, right? So very small, back to that sort of informal, because I'm sure they were quilting together before they decided to start the co-op, but the co-op allowed them to formalize something they already did informally to make it a thriving business. And then because it was a co-op and because it was a Black women run business, it accomplished all these other things as well. That's sort of how I would talk about it.
And I bring that up because we've talked a bit earlier today about working together. We talked about going to networking events and being the only person like you in a room, and one way to get around that is to bring somebody with you. And then I added on and building on this route, the idea of then talking about it, studying it afterwards, and then that's where I brought in the study circle kind of thing, right? But that's all it takes. It is the idea of it, right? Is 2 or 3 people just getting together and just starting the journey, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have to necessarily have a huge program or the most up-to-date website or anything like that. It really just takes a couple of people getting together, and then it comes to people like us to try and help facilitate where we can. But yeah,
right. But that learning by doing also is a huge piece of all this too, right? You don't necessarily have to have all the answers when you start, right? But you have to be able to work with other people and think things through with other people and just start doing it, right? And the more you do it, the more you learn a lesson, right? You might, this might not work too well, but that means you learn to try, that maybe you have to try something a different way. And so just that constant reinforcement, because you acted, right? You did something, you learned from that, and you kept moving forward, I think is really important. And most of the co-ops that I studied have those kinds of things. They had bad times and good times. They had setbacks, which they learned from and then came back stronger. Or they tried one co-op and that didn't work too well, but then they did something else. Or they started out with one co-op, but realized they also needed a credit union and they needed a this and a that. And so created an ecosystem. So there's everything that I studied really did start small. Nobody sort of said, oh, here's 100 people, let's just make you a co-op and put you in the middle of this place. That's just not the experiences that I found in the history that I learned. It was always about people coming together, what's going on, what can we do, trying things, and continuing to try and learn together.
And that's exactly what we talk about when we talk about entrepreneurship. It's just that we typically, when we talk about entrepreneurs, we talk about people going on their own, right? But here the difference is it's working with others with intentionality, which is a word that was sort of the word of the day, right? And intentionality to help one another as sort of the underlying foundation, I would say.
Right. And the other thing, I briefly studied micro entrepreneurship and micro business development. I wasn't that excited about it because again, they tried to focus just on individuals. But you know, when I was learning about it, most of the programs, especially the micro lending programs, required people to be in a lending circle and to work with others, right? And a lot of those micro lending, you had to make sure everybody in your lending circle paid back the mini loan before anybody could get another loan. And so it had all these elements of collectivism. So I used to argue, well, why not just be a co-op then? You're right. Why bother make people be on their own and do these little micro things? Why can't you, right? You know, but that again, but I think people realized that even though we say, right, the mythology in US capitalism is that entrepreneurship is about one individual, right, saving enough so they have enough capital to throw at something so they can do whatever they want and then reap the rewards. But most of the time, we do this together anyway. Even those single so-called capitalists were able to do what they did because they had wives, they had other programs helping them, they had other supports, right? So nobody really does it alone. That's the mythology. And so, yeah, I hope we can change that.
The point about the microfinance, research is showing that it's not beneficial. They're few reward.
Right. It's just too small. Right.
Yeah.
But I was surprised at how much they expected people to work together, even though they were talking about people starting their own little businesses.
So if anybody else wants to jump in, comments, questions along, you know, we've kind of have gone a little away from.
Well, I'd like to comment on, again, that point about nobody does it alone. You know, that whether it is me starting a business or working collectively with someone else, nobody does it by themselves. People, you know, there's somebody said, I built that. No, you didn't build that. You had somebody to help you build that. And so, and from an entrepreneur's perspective, I think that is something that as a woman of color, I had to understand that I couldn't do it by myself. And that there was always going to be somebody that I needed to depend on, me starting out, and then give credit where credit was due. Because sometimes we burn ourselves out trying to do it all by ourselves, thinking we have all the answers. And just like Jessica just said, maybe someone may have a better idea of how to do this thing. And so having a partner or having someone you can be a coach or a mentor or someone that you could work with, I think it's important to have a coach or a mentor in your life, particularly as an entrepreneur, so that you can bounce things off of.
Diana?
Yes, and in terms of collectivism, I don't know if you read Sonia Sotomayor's book, but she said that one of the things that got her to where she is today is the power of asking when she needed something. People, we don't want to ask, and we don't, and you'd be surprised how many people want to help you if you ask. There's an amazing power in asking when you need help. You like Ms. Ruth said, you can't do it alone.
And so what would be some suggestions on just some ways to start moving in a direction, not starting co-ops, but just kind of encouraging at least the collaboration, information sharing, you know, that's kind of, to me, the kind of sort of the root of it all. Do you have any suggestions on that? Go ahead. Dr. Gordon-Nembhart, you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Diane, is your hand back up or it's up from before? Okay. I wasn't sure.
No,
if you
sorry, I
had your hand up
forgot to
first.
put it down.
No, it's okay. I was going to go after you if you had your hand up. Yeah, again, we sort of said it, but just getting together with other people, right? You know, calling a meeting. I mean, I know with COVID, it's harder to do that, but you can still either meet outside or have a Zoom conversation or phone calls or whatever, but just, right, saying, I see this as an issue. I think we could solve it this way, or I don't really know how to solve it, but can we talk about it, right? And just getting people in a room or in a place where you can exchange ideas and think through something and create an action plan, right? So we don't want just talk, we want some kind of action. So getting people to think about not just what the problem is, but what the solution is, right? And to come together so that you can sort of commiserate a little bit about the problem, but really so you can put your heads together about solutions. And sometimes the solution will be, we need to keep meeting, right? We don't know yet, right? Or we need to ask other people, right? That's another thing that I found really surprising among African Americans was how much they went and talked to other people who are already doing something similar to what they thought they wanted to do. And this was even like during the Great Depression when nobody had any money, or, you know, when they were just coming out of enslavement and hardly had any money, but they were still traveling around talking to other people and meeting people. Oh, you are doing something. I think we want to do something like that here. What do you suggest? Pooling their money just to get a speaker to come in and tell them what they did somewhere else. So just all that kind of, let's get together. If we don't know, if our group doesn't know, let's try to find someone who's done something similar that can help us think about it, that kind of thing. And so not even expecting to have the answers, but expecting that together with other people, you can figure it out, and wanting to be involved in that kind of a group figuring it out.
So really quickly, Ms. Ruth, you have to leave if you want. So I want to thank you for coming and all that you've shared with us. It's always great.
Thank you, guys, and look forward to doing this again.
Crystal.
Yes, thank you. And I apologize, I'm unable to turn my camera on. But I did want to share, the work that I do with Tri-County Cradle to Career Collaborative is around collective action networks, right? So with that, our organization is a part of a larger network called Strive Together, who does a lot of work with communities, groups, and organizations focused on particular issues, or I wouldn't even say issues, concerns that
Oh my goodness.
impact
What was I?
that impact a child's development from cradle to career, right? So my thoughts would definitely be perhaps establish an entrepreneurship network. And within that network, that could consist of individuals who are within any part of the spectrum of entrepreneurship or small business ownership or co-op, so on and so forth, so that they can exchange ideas, deliberate, and share out information that can be most useful and impactful for the communities that they are working with or trying to impact. So that could definitely be something, of course, after the asset mapping that we were talking about before, with, trying to identify, what resources do we have here that we may be tapping into or may not be tapping into? Do we have the same people at the table all the time as it pertains to making decisions around, small businesses or entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth? Just like, as you were mentioning before, Professor Hansen, about, something as simple as, changing the name of a particular course per se. So, those different concerns coming together from every aspect of the work. Of course, every organization has their own, excuse me, the ambulance is driving by, has their own niche within the work, but all of the work overlaps and intertwines. And then just figuring out what that web looks like and feels like could definitely be beneficial to, not only Charleston, but, the Tri-County area as well.
So I'm already thinking of a final one more assignment for students, although this is technically the last day of class. The semester is not technically over yet. And I know students want to earn some points, but what I'm thinking is, one of the things that Gordon-Nembhart mentioned was having an action plan. And so one thought would be for each student to kind of write up a basic idea of an action plan from this conversation throughout today, because there's been a lot of information in here. And so I think, as I said, everybody has different knowledge, different experience. They see things differently. So each of you will write a slightly different action plan just because you're different. So I think I'll set up an assignment for that. But I think that would be interesting to see, and then kind of share back with the community, on what we can do. So I know we're getting close to the end here. Does anybody have any other comments, questions, thoughts, reactions?
I just want to thank for everybody for coming. I think this is a really good thing, and it should continue to hopefully happen next year. I know it might not, but hopefully there will be a way that it can.
Yeah. Well, that if it doesn't get figured out before the end of the semester, I'll figure it out before the end of the summer, because I'm still employed by university until August 15th, or at least I'm still collecting a paycheck and getting health insurance. And I want to make sure that this continues. This, to me, this is of all the things that I've done a lot of important things. Much of it's been sort of already dismantled, but hopefully this will be something that can be lasting. I believe that the universities should be outwardly focused. It should be not just training students to go work, but using the knowledge exchange and generation capacity to help the community, particularly the local community, and particularly in areas that need it the most, like the communities that the college has displaced, along with with the students and with all other people moving in and the gentrification and all that kind of stuff. I think we have that responsibility. But it's been a lot of great stuff. Each one of these has been a little bit different, and so if anybody has any last comments, last words, suggestions, follow up.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad you were able to do this. And again, it sounds like it was a great afternoon.
Yeah,
I'm glad I could be a part of it. Thanks for having me.
Sure. I will post this up on YouTube later and make it available. I have most of my other stuff on there. I don't promote it very well, but it's out there. And I would love to follow up with you later on, more specifically about in co-ops with the collective co-op here, and the one I'm trying to start for artists and DJs. So I'll follow up with you on that later. But with that, I will thank everybody for joining in with us today. I hope you got a lot of valuable information from this. As I said, I'll post this on YouTube, share it with everybody, so you can go back and review it, because there was a lot of information, a lot to digest. So again, thank you all.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
You.
Y'all have a good one.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. And Professor Hanson, let's keep in touch as you're in the midst of your
yeah.
transition.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. You all have a good one.
Okay.
All right.